also need to do that in order to have research done on it. There are many people, I've heard many people up here talking about the opioid epidemic that we're in. Where there has been significant studies that show that it helps people to safely get off of these drugs. In addition, when we talk about cannabis, there are many other uses for cannabis as well that we haven't even touched on. You know, when we use hemp, there's a lot of things that would be environmentally more safe than using other means such as wood if we were just to be able to invest in using hemp, cannabis. And so also when we're talking about this on a financial aspect, you know, there's a barrier of entry into getting into the cannabis industry. And I think we need to work on that because otherwise it's just going to be taken over again, and made into monopolies, and it's going to take away that individual, you know, prestige type of company that can come in and really give different kinds of services. So that's where I stand on that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Petarra?
First of all, those of you who served, thank you for your service. Welcome home. Amy, I'm very sorry for your loss. My condolences. So, full disclosure, I was planning on running in this race in 2016 as a Republican, and I felt that I could be best congressman, so obviously I'm biased. So I'm getting up my horse. I'm withdrawing my vote for this race. I feel it's conflict of interest, so I will not be voting on your endorsement personally. However, I do get to invoke my right to ask you a question. So, basically my question is very easy, yes or no. You can elaborate a little bit, but we're kind of short on time. So my question is, with the emergence of BRICS challenging NATO around the world and American influence on the international stage, would you be in favor of countermeasures or a counter-strike type movement against North Korea, which is influenced by BRICS? We'll start with you.
You know, as a military spouse, and I understand fully what it does to not only the men and women who serve, but also their families, I am a proponent to exhaust every means of making sure that we have gone in and tried to work through diplomacy. I think that is definitely the first step. You know, I'm not in Congress at this point, so I'm not privy to a lot of things that they are privy to, but I would need to be ensured that every step of diplomacy has been exhausted before I'm willing to send our men and women back into war again. And we're not just talking about our men and women, we're talking about North Korea. They have a lot of older you know, military equipment, but they have it up in the mountainous area. And that would be devastating to South Korea if we start going into North Korea. We need to make sure that we have done everything we can before we go into war. I think that's one of the most important decisions someone in Congress can make, whether or not we send our men and women to war. And we have to be ready to make that decision if it is yes as well. But we definitely need to make sure before we go to that point that we are exhausting every means of diplomacy.
Jeff Miller. Somebody asked me last year, they said, you know, are you a hawk? Are you a peaceful guy? And here's my take on that. I would not send any person to war if I had no confidence in the commander-in-chief, okay? Republican or Democrat. If I didn't trust their judgment, no, we're not going. Now, with North Korea, we've set ourselves up for this situation, Tim. We've kicked the can down the road. We had former presidents giving them classified information. So we've sat here, built up this powder keg, put our allies at risk. Most of those people in North Korea are starving. In the hills and the mountains, they're eating insulation wire. They're probably not going to fight. They're probably not. But we can't take that chance. Now, I don't want full-blown scale war, not at all. What I would probably suggest, maybe dropping EMPs over to hesitate, to slow their development down, what they have going. There's other things that we can do. We can fight them on the cyber front. We can do some trade wars. There's a lot of things we can do. We've already hit them with so many sanctions, it don't even matter at this point. He's sneaking into China to meet with President Xi.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to move to the next.
Sorry, what was the exact question?
It's pretty much, are you in favor of military action against North Korea?
Right.
In what circumstances?
Well, yes or no, if the president came to you asking for some kind of military action in North Korea.
Well, the president came to Congress asking for
That's supposed to happen.
a declaration of war against them, that would be one thing. If they just said, we just want to go in for whatever reason, that would obviously depend on the specific reasons and the intelligence at the time. I think right now we're kind of in a situation where we're kind of on hold with North Korea in the sense of things are somewhat calm now. I mean, it really depends on the other allies we have in the area and how they're dealing with things too. I wouldn't say I totally trust our president right now, but I wouldn't also say that just because I trust or don't trust my president, that would be a reason to either go to war or not. I mean, I would try and avoid sending in troops, that's for sure. If we could obviously avoid that, if we could use any other methods, especially negotiation and diplomacy, that'd be great. If it came down to the point where they said, look, this is happening, we have no more diplomacy, no more negotiation, we can't do anything with our allies, we have to go in, and they prove that to me, then I'd be willing to do that. I mean,
Okay.
David Gibbs. I don't think that we will be the country to initiate hostilities. Reasons are right now, he's running out of money. And that's part of why he is reaching out to China a little bit more, why he is reaching out to meet with the president, because our sanctions have done such a good job. Number two is he's understanding the aspect, the implications on his military. He can barely feed his people, much less now it's starting to impact the ability of the military. They're actually out foraging for food. His own military is doing that because he doesn't have enough to feed them. What we need to be careful of is not boxing into a corner where he now is desperate, and that's all, the only option he has left is military strike. And I think the path that we're going down will actually preclude or significantly reduce that problem, because we can continue to keep the pressure on him economically and impact that to the point where, okay, he's either got to give it up or he's going to implode. Thank you.
Bill Townsend, my vote would be no, to not allow the president a preemptive strike against Korea, and I'll tell you why. Korea is, realistically, it is a country that is so minuscule in the grand scheme of things around the world that it's certainly not worth risking American lives for. Secondly, Kim Jong-un is a young guy. He's trying to establish his place in his family's history. He's trying to take over a country and establish that he's the grown-up and he's the big guy with the sword. And he's saber-rattling. If we want to solve the Korea problem, all we need to do is get Xi Jinping of China to settle Korea down, and he has the power to do that because that's where they're getting most of their money today, most of their resources today. And China certainly does not want a bunch of North Korean refugees coming into their country, which would happen if there was a preemptive strike by the United States. At the same time, it would be very unfair for our allies, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, for the U.S. to take a preemptive strike because it puts them in direct jeopardy much more than us.
Rodney Smith, if it is in the best interest of safeguarding the people of the United States of America, and the president can present the facts that support that, if our national security apparatus can present the facts that supports a preemptive strike, then I'm willing to do what's necessary to protect the homeland and to protect the people of the United States of America. I mentioned in my introduction that I have served in some positions that have given me access to some of the greatest technology in the history of the world. And in doing that, I've worked what we generically refer to as Black Ops. I was part of a first strike unit. I give thanks that we were not deployed because all of the requirements for us to deploy were not met. I trust in our national security apparatus. I trust in our leadership. And if I'm in Congress, I will be a part of that leadership. I will use my experience and my knowledge and background in these types of operations to make those decisions. But if it is in, and it's proven to be in the best interest of safeguarding Americans in this country, I would support it.
Everything Rodney said is absolutely correct. We have weapons that, for instance, if he put a warhead, a nuclear weapon on a warhead, we already know. If he heats that warhead up, the president already has the right to take out that warhead in any country. Was voted in a long time ago. Something I have written, I've seen a lot of dead American soldiers. I've seen a lot of dead foreign soldiers. Just happened to be, they were on a different team than I was. It says here, number 9, I think it is, that I will not vote to send any of our soldiers anywhere in the world unless we have a plan to win. That I know there's certain things you can't tell Congress because they leak, but you better have a plan to win, figure out how we're gonna get out of there. We're not the world's police. We have to take care of our interests, and we have to take care of our allies who are supposed to also take care of us. So you give us a plan, someone heats up a warhead, of course, let's take the warhead out. I don't want another launch where Hawaii gets a call and everyone's panic bound, or they fly it over one of our territories. It's not acceptable. That saber rattling is not saber rattling. That's, what do we call that, what Hitler did all over the world? You know, where he intimidated everybody. I'll send my armies, the Blitz. And at one time we had a chance to make Korea not happen, but they didn't listen to MacArthur, but MacArthur wanted to go all the way into China, a little bit too far. But we sure could have went up to the Yellow River and then stopped right there, and then told the Chinese, by the way, when President Eisenhower, he did the big bluff, it really wasn't a bluff, because you could ask anybody in the Air Force, there is not one person in this room that served the Air Force that would tell you they would trade their stuff for our stuff, because our stuff is the best. The truth is the Air Force has some of the best trained, smartest people in that line of work in the world. And I did nuclear chemical engineering for the United States Army, so I kind of know a little bit about it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rodney, you're absolutely correct.
Steve Sanson Jr. First, I'd like to thank every one of you for coming this morning. It means a lot that you're being here. My question is, given today the state of our country, I'd like to know where you stand on the Second Amendment, and if elected, what steps you take to improve on things that are going on moving forward.
The Second Amendment is probably the clearest of all the amendments. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people, remember, we the people, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I guess you know where I stand on the Second Amendment. It seems funny to me that we have all these laws on the books. And go on your phones and look it up. Now, I'll gladly have you look it up. How many felons tried to buy firearms last year? And then how many got arrested? It's illegal for a felon to buy a firearm, which then would then make him another felon, wouldn't it? And yet, why is it the BATF, when we call them, they don't seem to want to show up? Why is it when Fast and Furious went on, they ended up closing down 2 gun stores here who absolutely helped the BATF? When the BATF allowed those firearms to go into Mexico, nobody was held accountable. But you know what they did? They closed 2 gun stores here. Can someone tell me what those gun stores did other than follow orders? The one, Machine Gun Kelly, although I shouldn't mention names.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, but all right, I hope I answered your question. Let's go after the felons who try to get it. Universal background checks, brilliant. But when we do it, they don't arrest the people that are the felons trying to buy the guns. We want to end gun crime, and let's help our students. Let's let our teachers, let them, not mandate that they have to. Let them have guns in school. That one teacher who ended up throwing his life to guard those 2 kids got shot. I promise you, if he would have had a gun, the predator would have been taken out.
Rodney Smith, the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. And without the Second Amendment, maybe the language that we speak today wouldn't be English. So I am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment rights, but as with most things, sometimes there's room for improvement. And the current background check that we have, I support it, but I do believe it can be strengthened. We can make sure it's fully funded. That's one thing that we can do to fix it. we can make sure that through the use of technology, that when one group or state, for example, the United States military, Air Force says that someone shouldn't have a weapon, then that should be loaded into a database that other entities have access to. So though I do believe in our rights to bear arms, if there's ways to strengthen and improve the background checks to ensure that people who shouldn't have them don't have them, I will support that. But in general, I like to go out shooting myself. Maybe we could go out shooting sometime.
Bill Townsend, great question, Steve. I am a ardent supporter of the Second Amendment, lifetime member of the NRA, concealed carry licensee for 26 years. I am a big believer that much of what we face in this country is not due to drugs, is not due to guns. It is due to the breakdown of the family. It's due to the moral incompetency of everybody from parents to politicians who have not taken the role in helping their children grow up to be respectful, responsible members of our society. When you look at what's happened in Parkland, Florida, for instance, every sign was there. It was a systemic failure that the FBI did not take action, that the school did not take action. The kids themselves who've been splattered all across the media, and I really believe they're being utilized by people not behind them, have said, look, we picked on him, we ostracized him since middle school. And then they wonder why this kid snapped. And we see this over and over and over again. I have a very strong program position on my website. I have a very strong school safety position. I believe that we have to fix our NICS system. We have to make sure that the military records are put into the NICS system. We have to make sure that the states are not compliant, are compliant. I have a program where I believe would be very effective at funding a lot of school safety, as in armed guards in the school. With regards to teachers, I've polled a lot of teachers. Most of them are not in favor of carrying a gun, but those that are, maybe if they go through the training and show that they're responsible and they can hold their cool under duress, then maybe they should be allowed to carry. I would much rather put a retired police officer or military veteran in there who has had extensive professional training in firearm safety and training in school safety in a classroom. And we put that in every single school in America for $12 billion a year.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you.
David Gibbs, once again, ditto just about everything he said. The only comment I want to make is people have talked about what happened in Parkland as a systemic failure. I disagree in the fact that it was a people failure. There was a system in place to identify this, but the people who were to take the steps didn't take those steps. And that's one of the other aspects that we need to look at is when somebody gets notified that, hey, we've got a potential problem here, is are we actually doing something about it? I'm hoping that's the good that comes out of what happened in Parkland, is they understand that, yes, we need to actually do something, similar to what happened in San Bernardino with the terrorists there, where neighbors said, there's problems here, but nobody would say anything. So we need to get people, when they say something, we need the government to take, we need the people who are supposed to take the action to take the action. I don't want somebody to be deprived of their right to have weapons of any type without due process. That is the other part that we need to make sure we guarantee. That if somebody has pointed out, hey, we think this person has an issue, that there is a due process that happens before their weapons are taken away because they're deemed, it's deemed that they're not safe to have weapons for some type of mental condition. But I'm also a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I don't want anything that's going to tinker with the wording and how the Second Amendment functions in our society. Thank you.
Thanks, Gregg Luckner. When you talk about Second Amendment, you're talking about the Bill of Rights. As libertarians go, that's pretty much it for it. I mean, individual rights, the Bill of Rights is very important, all of them equally. And the Second Amendment, it's made out nowadays like it's not a modern thing, like, you know, oh, the First Amendment's very important, but the Second Amendment is not very modern, up to date. We don't need militias, you know, to fight the government and all that. There's a reason why they put the Second Amendment second. I mean, if we don't have the right to bear arms ourselves, we can't fight against authoritarianism or anything, basically. We can't protect our other rights. So that being said, I mean, the modern problems that we have, a lot of the solutions that we're being given are, let's take away this person's rights to have guns because, you know, they're on this list or they're on that list or whatever. Once we start making lists and we start background checking too much and we start coming up with reasons to take away people's guns, that just gives the authority to the government more and more to be able to say, look, we're just gonna take away everyone's guns basically gradually, and then we're gonna be able to do whatever we want. And we really don't wanna start down that slippery slope. So yes, there are some solutions that we can have, but I'd rather look into the solutions that don't involve taking away people's rights to own guns and defend themselves, and look into other solutions that might be a little bit more, like maybe more counselors in schools, you know, maybe more taking care of these people that are known issues, you know, looking out for them specifically instead of going after what gun they might have or what gun they might not have. I mean, people could use a bomb, a knife, whatever, if they want to cause damage and they want to kill people. So let's start thinking about other solutions and not start thinking about taking away people's rights to arm themselves first. Because I know the authoritarians are trying to do that more and more, and they're using these examples as excuses every day. And we have to fight against them, but not look like we're trying to fight against like the students themselves. We're trying to fight against the authoritarians that are using these people to get their agenda passed.
So Steve, to me, it's real simple. I'm a constitutionalist. So anything that comes before me, how I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna weigh it against the Constitution. If it's in line, then we'll put it through, but if it's not, it's not. So to me, the Second Amendment is quite clear. Anything that comes between your right to firearm ownership, I'm gonna vote against that. I'm gonna vote with the Second Amendment every single time. I've said this from the very beginning, and I mean it. It's quite clear. Yes.
I think that just concentrating on just the Second Amendment solely by itself is not really looking comprehensively at what our forefathers thought. We were also guaranteed the pursuit of life. What life? We have lost people not only across this country but in this state. I am for people, of course, you know, I'm for people to be responsible gun owners. My husband is in the military again, an expert shootsman. I am not against guns, but I am for responsible ownership. Our government also has a duty to ensure that we are protecting our citizens and what is more precious than life. And let's be realistic, you really can't take over the government with some guns. We have much more advanced technology than that today. What I am for is for having sensible gun safety legislation, such as robust background checks, you know, closing the gun show loophole, making sure that, you know, even we could do a waiting period of 48 hours. That would really decrease the amount of people that die in domestic violence, as well as the largest death by gun, which is suicide. So when we start talking about legislation, I really feel we need to look at it holistically, look at how we are protecting our people, and no one in this country should be afraid to go to a concert or send their kids to school. We need to be making legislation that protects all of us and also protects the rights of people to have, you know, be sensible gun owners.
We need to get on to the other questions, but could we pass the mic all the way down to the end for a minute? So I know that our time's getting limited, but I think we're gonna have enough time. But if the first two, if you just want to comment just like briefly, like, you know, 15 seconds or something, the question kind of progressed down in the end. And then we got to like a gun show loophole and some of the reforms. If you just have like a...
Yeah, well, we can't do that.
I don't understand what the gun
They-
show
they all had
loophole
the
is
opportunity to
anyway,
answer the
so.
question. No, hang on for a
Panel
second.
members don't want to do that, that's fine.
Okay, but there is no such thing as a gun show loophole.
That's fine. Just
Every FFL owner.
That's okay, Mr. Wegner, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Good morning.
Hi.
I keep
My
the mic
question-
then, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sure.
My question is, how do you plan on working to protect our students? Right now, with school police, it's like a 1-to-3 ratio, one officer per three schools themselves, and that's not safe. What do you plan on doing?
A lot of friends of mine are school teachers who get attacked by their own students. Beto was just well, it doesn't matter, I won't go with the names, he just got attacked by a student. What do you do about parents? How do you mandate parents to tell their kids they're not allowed to fight or attack there's because they get mad? I don't have that answer. If you're talking about security, I think if a teacher feels it necessary to go get a concealed weapons permit, I think teachers should be allowed to carry weapons at school. So whether you agree or not, a teacher that's gonna want to carry a gun at school is already gonna be, go to all the classes, get trained up and practice. I mean, anybody here that owns a gun will tell you, if you don't practice, drawing a gun on somebody, especially on automatic, so many things can happen. Revolvers, of course, just pull the trigger, but to make you answer your short, you can't mandate parents to tell their kids not to attack their teachers. I do have an idea that maybe we should get rid of, if a good kid gets in a fight at school defending some other kid from a bully, maybe that kid shouldn't get suspended. Maybe we should have consequences for your action, because isn't freedom equals responsibility and consequences for your actions? So maybe instead of kicking both students out, one for defending himself or defending another, maybe they should have a little hearing and say, wait a minute, you're the bad kid, you're the aggressor, instead of showing everybody that, oh my God, if you defend yourself, you're gonna get in trouble at school. So maybe we should start that way, and then maybe there's other ways, but I don't have all the answers.
Can you be more specific with your question, please?
Regarding the officers in schools, right now there's a shortage, which leaves our kids open to not feeling safe in the schools.
So after the shooting, there was a lot of talk about what we should do with our schools and safety. So what I did was I went and talked to gun owners, and I went to talk to some gun shops. And first of all, I wanted to see how people who had guns felt about it. And one of the things that they shared with me was that whatever it takes to safeguard their children, they want to do. We can harden our schools, and many of them are really just a disaster waiting to happen. And so we need to look at what would it cost and what practices do we need to put in place to ensure that those schools become less of a tempting target. With resource officers, or whatever name that particular school has, one of the things that they also suggested is many of our high schools, for example, have JROTC programs with various services, people who actually do have experience with weapons, and maybe we should look at, if we're going to arm folks in school, that maybe that's the first place to look. Also, let's look at what would it cost to hire guards, armed guards, that are trained specifically for the types of attacks that occur in schools today, and they're willing to spend the money on that as well. Ultimately, we may not be able to stop it, but we can put things in place to minimize it. But there has to be money, and there has to be a will of that particular locale to do it.
Bill Townsend, we entrust our school system with 50 million kids every day, and our kids should have the same level of security as a judge, as an airplane pilot, as a member of Congress. That means we have to harden the schools down. Armed guards, biometric access to the buildings. We have systems now where they can recognize your face coming in now, and if you're not in that database of students or parents or teachers or administrators, you're not going to get through the door. We have to look at ways for kids to be able to report threats that they see amongst their classmates, and those things have to be acted upon. But in terms of our children, it is appalling to me that we do not have basic security measures in place. I went to high school many, many years ago, graduated in 1982, Western Pennsylvania, and we always had an armed guard in our facility, all the time. That's the minimum that our kids should be given.
Dave Gibbs, I think we should repeal laws that require schools to be gun-free zones. That's part of it. I mean, basically, you hear all the time about people saying, well, why do they go to the schools? Because they know there's no guns there. So that's one. Number two is I agree that yes, we need to harden the schools a little bit, restrict access, be more careful about who gets in the door. And then the third one is, yes, we should have armed guards, armed volunteers. We should have somebody as to who those exact people are. You know, there's all different kinds of ideas out there to explore. Thank you.
Gregg Luckner. Different school districts deal with security differently. Our school district, Clark County, has their own sort of police department to some extent. Parkland, where they had a shooting, did not. They worked with the local police departments. We have some security officers in different schools. Some schools have them, some schools, I mean, it's individual schools deal with it differently. And maybe it might be better if the school district was a little bit more even-handed about that, how they put them in. Definitely, our party has problems with how they pay administrators a lot versus, you know, maybe not as much for guards and teachers and things like that that we may need to put more resources into. And of course, technology will help. If we wanted to use technology, we could make schools safer using that. But a lot of the issues is the schools, especially certain schools, have just gotten more dangerous over time. And, you know, like I said before, we're getting rid of school counselors, we're getting rid of people to deal with the problem children, basically, because we're just going like, well, that's an issue. We can't deal with that. There's too many problems, there's gangs or whatever. We need to have people specifically to deal with those issues and to deal with the students individually, so we don't have that kind of random problem child pop out of nowhere and start a school shooting or whatever the incident is.
Thank you, Mr.
Jeff Miller. Now, Disney, what you're asking specifically, putting the officers in the school, that's going to be more of a local question. It's more going to be with the school district, even the state. It's not really going to be on the congressional level. But I do have some opinions on it. I think what we could do is, and check out the demographics, check out the areas. You could even put a little police substation in the rough ones, right? And you just kind of have retired folks who just come in, and a lot of these people pass background checks already. A lot of them are concealed weapons, and just volunteer. That way, it's not costing the school district money. It's not putting any more stress on that's already out there. But good question.
I don't believe that putting more guns in the schools as far as arming the teachers is the answer. I have 5 kids, and if they want to find a way to get to it, they will. We're asking teachers to put themselves in harm's way without proper training. I am for having a federal grants going out to the school systems for them to be able to make sure that they have the best security on site. You know, and also when we're talking about, you know, guns, most of these children are bringing them from home. So maybe it's time to start looking at some legislation that also says, you know, if you're an adult and you have a gun, you have a responsibility to have it locked and have it kept safe at home, or you're going to be responsible as well. I think we need to work as a community to really find a solution to these and have the support of both the families and the school districts.
Thank you.
Robert Foust. I would like to know if you agree with or you would support privatizing the VA rather than the VA benefits that go on now. You could go and get private treatment any place.
That is definitely, I would not support that in any fashion. And I actually had someone ask me, a reporter, how much more money do we need to put into the VA? And my response was, how many more men and women are we going to send overseas? Because you need to have 5 times that amount ready for them when they come back home.
Yeah, I would. I would support that. I think you should be able to go anywhere you want to go. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, it's like I suggested years ago, just have that insurance card as good as gold, take it, and you come and go wherever you want. Especially in the rural areas, because a lot of these places like Indian Springs and also in Lincoln County, they don't even have transport to get there, back and forth to the VA. They're relying on a lot of times the senior citizens' vans to take them back and forth. So if they had the ability to go wherever they felt they needed to go or wanted to go, it's just a matter of survival at that point.
Yeah, I don't think that get rid of, you know, the VA system as it is, but like here we have some very good VA hospitals, we're building more, we have some access, but like I said, in more rural areas in a lot of places, they depend on TRICARE, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It might be a better system to have a sort of Medicare, Medicaid sort of system instead, kind of combined with the VA system that we have now, just to make sure, you know, I don't want them to fall through the cracks. We basically have to have something that allows them to get care wherever they're at, as good as they can possibly get without having to devise a whole new system.
David Gibbs, one of the biggest problems we have at the VA isn't with the doctors, it isn't with the folks who see the patients, it's above there. And in a lot of cases, the bureaucracy of the VA and the money that is wasted just supporting those positions needs to be readdressed. We need to get in, and we just had the act that was passed that allows the government to fire non-performing VA employees. If seeing a specialist in the private sector provides better care than seeing a similar or a physician at a VA hospital, I'm in favor of it. That's what TRICARE does with the military, is if they don't have somebody or their capability, the facilities don't support enough people to cover all the patients, they do send them out to the private sector.
Bill Townsend, I am 100% in favor of allowing somebody who has VA benefits to go see any doctor, any hospital that they choose to.
Rodney Smith, I am a disabled veteran, use the VA system. I do not agree with privatizing the VA. It is a sacred promise that's made to those who serve to protect this nation. And it's a sacred promise that needs to be kept. There are some things that can be done, obviously, to improve the VA. One is maybe getting more veterans in Congress to ensure that the VA works for its customers as it should. That's what I would like to do once I'm in there, to use my experience as someone who was paralyzed and had to use the VA system and was very thankful for it. And as you can see, I walk just fine today.
I'm gonna tell you a few stories about the VA. For instance, when I had my job damaged, the VA went to do some of the work on it. They did the wrong side. Of course, you can't sue VA doctors. Where if this would have happened on the outside, I would have been able to sue them. My son, who has shrapnel in him, I'll put down his backside. They said, well, it's probably too expensive. It's probably not gonna hurt you later. Don't you think my son has the right to have his body put back as whatever condition they could possibly do? Is it over money? If we can get better treatment on the outside, we did our promise to the American people and served our country and got sent off to war, then you have an obligation to fix them when they come home. It just seems logical to me. Privatize it if you have to. They're already doing that. But I have a problem with, for instance, the VA here. They have 3 hygienists on the books. That's what this needs to have 3, but they only have 1. They've always only had 1. So our older veterans who have teeth problems, takes forever to get in, just to get a cleaning, for them to look at it, to go see a dentist. That doesn't make sense to me. If you have, we have the resources. The VA is, was it number 5? If we're a Fortune 500 company, it would be number 5 in the whole world. And yet, the administrators, like was said earlier, we seem to have a lot of administrators, and you go ask any of the doctors, they're all overworked, they're all tired, but they all come in anyway. We have some of the best doctors, but when they're tired, they don't do their jobs right. So let's give them the right number that they need, because whatever reason Congress allowed them, our soldiers, to get sent off to war, so let's fix them the right way when they come home.
Okay, I want to thank all our panelists. I want to thank all our candidates here for Congressional District 4. Just finish up. We're just going to give you like 20 seconds, just really fast. Say your name, why you should be endorsed, and pass the mic. Awesome.
Again, my name is Kenneth Wegner. I was the last one to speak. Just read my pledge. It's pretty simple. You read my pledge, you'll probably endorse me on this. We have good candidates up here. They have a lot of good ideas. The only thing is, when you read my pledge about not taking money from lobbyists, PACs, and special interest groups, that's one of the main problems with Congress. They get all this extra money by getting this money, and it's threatened. I've had people say, if we don't give you this, when I won Congressional District 1, you know, if you don't really take this money, you know, we're just gonna end up, they're gonna give it to your opponent. Well, go ahead, give it to Congresswoman Berkeley, as she raised over $2 million from just lobbyists the last time I ran against her, when I was a Republican nominee.
My name is Rodney Smith, running for Nevada's 4th Congressional District, the district that has the majority of our major military installations. It is also, Nevada has one of the highest veterans populations, it's roughly 15%. Most of those are in Congressional District 4. I am a veteran. I think it's about time that we have someone there that understands the needs of the people from CD4 veterans as well as active duty military. We know historically that Congress has worked better with the greater number of veterans in Congress. Because in the military, we don't worry about whether it's a Republican idea or a Democratic idea. What we do is it what's best for this country when we serve? As I serve out of uniform, hopefully in Congress, I will look out for each and every one of you of what are your needs. Not what the party tells me I can say, not what the party tells me I can champion, because the people that I want to champion are American citizens and those residents of Nevada's 4th Congressional District, as well as the rest of this state. Once again, my name is Rodney Smith. You can reach me at Rodney Smith for Congress, CD4.com. Thank you.
My name is Phil Townsend, and I would like to be your new voice in Congress. I believe that I bring a career of innovation and starting companies and employing over 2,000 people to bear on what we can do in Washington, D.C. I'm a big believer that we have too many attorneys making laws who've never had to create jobs, who've never had to look at homeless people in the face, who've never had to sit across from a guy like DJ Skelton who has been put through the ringer in the VA medical system. I have a website, Townsend4Nevada.com. On it you'll find 12 position papers, including one on our military and veterans. There's also copies out there. I invite you to download it, and I would appreciate your endorsement.
My name is David Gibbs. You can check out my website at Gibbs4Nevada.com. I have lived in Nevada for about 19 years. I'm a veteran, 25 years in the Air Force. I understand the issues we face as I get around the district and talk to a lot of the folks. You know, one of the things that I hear is we want the government to get out of our business. We want the government to get off our backs. So we will continue to fight to reduce regulations. I will continue to work for the betterment of the people to grow their businesses, to start new businesses and develop that, because when business grows, people do better. It's that simple. And that's what that's my focus, is on helping the people and focusing on the people in CD4 so that they can improve their lives and they can get better, they can keep more of their own dollars in their pocketbook. I appreciate your vote. I appreciate the endorsement of this group. Thank you.
Gregg Luckner, running for Congress, CD4, LucknerForCongress.com. Basically, I'm running because we want to present practical solutions that also protect individual rights as much as possible, and not just the standard Democrat and Republican talking points that have been going back and forth forever. Some individual voices perhaps in Congress would be a good idea. Like I said, common sense solutions, looking out for individual rights is our main thing, and hopefully you can get your vote.
Jeff Miller. One thing we have to keep in mind, whoever wins this, we're not running for an executive position. It's legislative. We need team players, because we can sit here and talk all day what we're going to do and what we want to do, but unless we're willing to go work with other people, we're not going to do really anything. So that's something we have to do. You know, I've been out there, I've been out in the rules, I've been all over this state. Been doing this for a year now. I've talked to the people out there. I'm running to be the representative for the rural communities, for the big city, Las Vegas, for the businessman, for the little man. Everybody will have a voice with me, because even if I don't necessarily agree with you, I'll meet with you and I'll listen to what you say. I will listen. That I will. You do have access to me. But go to my website, Miller4Nevada.com. You can do number 4, spell it out. It'll both get you there, Miller4Nevada.
I think bring a really unique mix to Congress in that not only have I had struggled as a single mother through poverty, often having to use assistance programs, eventually making my way through college, and then became a CFO, but I'm also a military spouse. You know, we need to have bold representation in Congress who are beholden to the people. I have had over 7,000 individual contributions, and not one of them are from corporations or special interest groups. We need people that are going to be there and listening to the constituents and not having to owe favors to people who have donated to them as they've been running. And I think that is definitely what's needed going forward. You can find me at amyforthepeople.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank everyone. I want to thank our sponsors, the treasurer, and the water, and the business. Thank all the candidates. Wish everyone the best of luck.